Most people call me Shrimp. That's a nickname I've had for many years. Well, my name is actually Patrick Guillaume Gauvain. That's my full name. But it's much easier to say Shrimp, and Shrimp is a nickname that was given to me, a rather rude nickname that was given to me when I was at school in England because of my diminutive height. And it stuck. And when I went to Japan, everybody called me Ebi-san, Mr. Shrimp. And when I came to Bangkok, they called me Gung. When in 1975, when I started my business, I had to come up with a name for the company, so I called it Shrimp Studios at that time, and then rebranded in 2000 as Shrimp Asia. The reason I came to Thailand was actually I was in Japan, and I had this sort of I'd been working with the Beatles as the assistant photographer, and I sort of stayed behind when they went there on the tour there, and I got into Japanese pottery, and I wanted to be a potter. Would you believe it? No. I met some Thai people there, and they offered me a position in Bangkok. And I sort of went over the top of my head, and I was with my Japanese girlfriend, and we were going to England. We went through Japan on the way, Thailand on the way. She didn't like it. We went back to Japan eventually. And then I met these Thai people again. They said, would you like to go and work in Bangkok? And I said, yeah. The relationship with the lady was by the by that time. And so I got onto a Message Maritime cargo ship and sailed to Bangkok on the 19th of September 1968 and arrived here to find that the job was no longer there and the magazine had folded. So I picked up the pieces from there. I had a camera, I had a portfolio of my work, and I think about $100, and that was it. So I built everything up from that. Yeah. The energy I get from working is really the passion that I have for doing the work that I enjoy doing, which is it's a combination of design, photography, and coming up with sort of branding concepts for clients. Retirement for me is not an option. I may sort of cut back from working on a day-to-day basis and be more a sort of business development manager, but actually pulling away from the company is really not on the cards. I just enjoy working so much. Shrimp Asia has been in the strategic marketing, planning, business and design communications for since the year 2000. Prior to that, we were more of a sort of a design photographic studio. And it was in the year 2000 that we sort of rebranded ourselves. Before it was called Shrimp Studios, we changed it to Shrimp Asia, and focused more on marketing communications, strategic marketing planning, and then all the ancillary things that came along. And most of our clients are mainly in the sort of hospitality and property areas. Those are the two sort of key areas in which we work. And in doing that, we develop brand ID. We do logo design development, corporate identity development, naming of things like restaurants and so on and so forth, and then all the design work of logo designs, websites, ads, ad campaigns, etc., etc. So it's a sort of package deal. And we also have a signage division where we design, supply and install signs for hospitals, airports, multi-purpose buildings, etc., etc. And that's a sort of a diversification of the main business. The calendar became quite a sort of a item under demand at the end of the year, and I started doing it in 1985, and it was brought about really by a colleague of mine, Michael Schultz, and I were looking through some of my old photography, and he said, why don't you make a calendar? And I said, well, I've got tons of material because I've been working for Kunsonti Manager Group, doing a magazine for him called Shiwit Dong Su, which means life must go on. And I was doing girly spreads for his magazine at that time. So I still had tons of material. So Mike and I went through and we edited the thing. And I'd done calendars before. I was still doing calendars that time for Mekong and Sainsom and Sumitomo 3M and various other people. And I'd done calendars before in Japan when I was living there. So I had quite a lot of experience in it. So I designed and produced a calendar, and Michael and I printed a couple of 100 copies, put them under our arms and walked down to Pat Pong and sold them all out in one night. I just sort of decided, okay, I'm going to stop doing the calendar. I did it up until about 2002, I think, something like that, and then I just basically stopped doing it. So there was 15 years of calendars there, which are kind of fun. So I've got tons of material. Some of it's never been published. There was one year which I sold out. I think it was 1991. Sold out completely, and I went onto eBay, bid, and lost. They were selling a set, and I just wanted to get that one printed calendar, and I lost. I lost the bid. Well, lots of people have lots of stories to tell about me. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, some of them are very indifferent. I really enjoy having parties. I like going to parties. I like holding my own parties, and some people actually say that some of my parties have been legendary because of what they find when they get there. I've been to some very wild parties in Bangkok, and I think I've also thrown some very wild parties in Bangkok. Well, one of the parties that I did held was at my old office, which was on Soi 20 on Sukhumvit, and I invited all my clients and friends as well, so there was a wonderful sort of very, very eclectic mix of strange people and nice people and weird people and fun people. And I had this the Tiffany's Transvestite show come and do an incredible show there. I had some dancers from the Safari Bar. They did a show there as well. I had police guarding the whole place. And then I had another police from another precinct trying to take it over, and then the police got into a fight about whether it was legal or not legal and what was going on there and so on. And it went on until about 5 o'clock in the morning. It was wild. It was a very wild party. I think I've mellowed now over the years. I still enjoy a good party, but I don't, kick up the dust as much as I used to in the old days. I have a relationship with my wife which I call myself a happily married bachelor. And so she puts up with me and I put up with her. Well, the person I enjoyed being with a lot, and we had a lot of fun together, was Roman Polanski. And we had similar tastes. And also he's an artist as well, a great artist and a great film producer, and we sparked off quite well together. I had a sort of short friendship with Bobby De Niro, but I haven't really been much in touch with him for a long time now. Okay. But Roman is a good friend. We used to go into restaurants, and people used to come up to him and say to him, are you Roman Polanski? And the Roman used to point at me and say, no, he's Roman Polanski. And we confuse people as much as possible. Yes, I was involved in the Deer Hunter movie. I was part of the pre-production team in terms of finding locations and setting up a lot of the pre-production requirements, in terms of extras and transportation and all kinds of things like that. And then when the director, Michael Cimino, came out, the director, I was his Thai first assistant. He had obviously a first assistant from the US, but I was his local first assistant. So I worked very closely with Cimino on the whole shooting of the film. Unfortunately, I had an accident halfway through the shoot, and then I had a car accident and had whiplash, and I ended up in hospital. So I didn't finish the film. Yes, well, I came to Thailand in 1968, and in those days by boat. And Bangkok was very different in those days because there weren't any high-rise buildings, and there were lots of paddy fields and roundabouts, and far less cars. In fact, some lovely old American cars as well. It was a very peaceful city at that time. Patpong was a wonderful place in the 70s and the 80s, late 70s and 80s. It was a great place. It was lots of fun and lots of activity, and there wasn't a dull moment. I used to go there every night, every single night. It was lots of fun. Yeah. And I had my own parking space outside the Mississippi Queen. It was reserved for me, And at that time I had a little Austin Healey, red Austin Healey 3000. Then I switched it to a little white MGB. But that was my space, and everybody knew who. Oh, that's Shrimp's car. He's here, But Patpong today is finished. I think it's pretty much gone. Well, actually, I was there last week, but not on. I went to the Patpong Museum. I took some people there because Michael, who started it, is a friend of mine, and it was very interesting to go through the museum. Although I think they need to up the profiles on some of the bars there a little bit, but the histrionics and the way they go through the museum is brilliantly done. It's very, very well done. Yeah, I've given Michael some material already, some video work, some video footage, some of my old calendars and a lot of photography. He's put some of it up, but I think he's working on making a shrimp corner there somewhere. Well, I think the whole scenario has changed. We've grown up. And we've gotten much older, and so the sort of parties and the sort of fun that we have today is very different to what we used to do in the old days. You know what it's like when you get to this age. You sit down with your friends and you talk about your health. In the old days, you sit down with your friends and talk about pussy. I've got a number of things I'm trying to do right now. One is a book. I'm doing a book for Hume Shawcross on Napoleon. I'm doing another book for Rotary. I'm putting together a book for Taschen, the publishers, a dummy for them, on a retrospective of my work from 1970 to 2000, nude photography. And in parallel to that, I was thinking of doing a revive of the calendar. Bangkok has evolved over the years. And, as much as you want it to stay in the way you wanted it to be, back in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, it will never be that again. And you have to sort of evolve with the way the city has evolved, And I have wonderful memories of, the city when it was full of roundabouts and the traffic wasn't that bad. And now it's sort of high rises and gridlocks. But that's the nature of the game, I'm sure that it's going to be like that in Yangon soon, If I had to live in another place, if I had to live in Europe, anywhere else in Europe, I would probably want to live in somewhere like Amsterdam, because it's a very sort of relaxed, laid-back city. Berlin is also very nice as well. If I had to live somewhere else in Asia, maybe, Tokyo is not really Asia; it's more sort of far east. But maybe Manila. Because it's still fun, It's sort of laid back and relaxed, and the laws aren't too. There are lots of grey areas. I like grey areas. I sort of had this. I used to have a house in Samui, and I sold that some years ago because I didn't really go there very much. And my wife's more interested in getting something up in the hills in Chiang Mai or Khao Yai or something like that. I'm more of a sort of a beach person, but I don't really sit on the beach. I like being by the sea, but I'd rather sit under a tree with a vodka tonic. I've been thinking of Bang Sarai, and getting something up on the hill there, which could be quite nice. What's next in my life? Well, I will carry on running this business. I'd like to step back. I had somebody who was going to take over from me, but he's no longer around. I'd like to find somebody who could step in sort of more or less into my position to run the business, and so I could step back and just do business development and keep an eye on the creative levels. and work on these books and other sort of things that I've got in the back of my mind that I'd like to do. But I won't stop working. If you don't enjoy it, don't do it.
Thanks, Shrimp, and thank you for joining us here on BigChilli TV. If you have a social event, or a business to promote, or a story to tell, get in contact with us here at BigChilli TV.